like to welcome you to another edition, Scars to Stars. Scars to Stars, as you know, is that program that comes to profile women and to show a cross-section of how they have become who they are. We look at their success stories, we look at their lives, we look at them from where they started off to where they are going. And today we are privileged to have one leading woman, one achieving woman, somebody that is making a difference in the lives of women. Apart from achieving professionally in her career, she has gathered women together, and these women are making a difference. And we want to know why. I want to know what's her story, what informs founding the Push Women's Network. She is the founder and she has co-founders she will explain to us. But most importantly, she is the first or the youngest ever colonel in the Zambian Defense Forces, and she holds a position in the Defense Forces that she's the first woman to be in there. We will want her to share her experience and her story with us. So we welcome tonight, we have as our guest Colonel Musa Namawa. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much.
Today.
Thank you so much for having me, Pastor.
You have lived a fairly long life, very fairly, because you're coming, you're not middle-aged yet, you're just getting there, but your achievements speak. And what really gets me personally and informs us coming to speak is not just your professional career, but your national career, because you are pushing the boundaries of women achievement, and most importantly, you're galvanizing, bringing women together to make a difference in society through Push. And we want to know, who is Musa Kanji? Why did you go into the army? You're already a lawyer, you don't need the army. Why are you there? What informs that? And how did we give birth to Push? And Push is about to do something no one else has done, as it were. And you're about to, particularly in the COVID world, you're making a difference. So let's go to the beginning and let's talk to you. Guide us, please. And I know you're very educated, very informed. So let's see how you take us. Who is Musa Kanji and how is she, this woman I tried to?
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes a very difficult question to answer when somebody says, okay, who are you? Tell us who you are. And to sort of decide, where do I begin in answering that question? And perhaps for me, I would say the most vivid memories of myself growing up was, somebody who was very creative and artistic, and I remember my mother sort of picked that up very quickly because her father also was an artist. He used to sing, he used to play guitar, and I think that when she saw that in me, she immediately recognized that where that was coming from. But it came out through the medium of music. I used to sing, I used to sing in primary school, I sing at school, functions, etc. And now that I'm older, I realized that the fascination for me in being able to do that was this ability to command the whole room, so that you are able to call everybody to attention, so that they're able to hear what you have to do.
When did you recognize that?
I recognized that I was probably maybe 8 or 9. Whenever, because I grew up in UCZ, my parents go. So, I would go to the main church, and I would go to Sunday school. And whenever we'd be done with Sunday school, one of the Sunday school teachers would say, does anybody have a song for us to sing? And usually they would be looking at me because I'd be the one to volunteer. And then I would take up and I would start singing, and everybody would be listening. And I would just be very aware of the fact that everybody is paying attention to nothing else but what is happening in that moment. And to me, now that I'm older, I realize that was speaking to influence. How do you influence your space? How do you take that attention that you have to be able to spearhead your story or your agenda or what it is that you're trying to achieve? So I think that obviously as I grew older, I started thinking more intentionally about what I wanted to do with my life and my career.
Tell us before you go far, tell us a bit about your parents. Who were they? What did they do? And how did they influence you? You've told us about your grandfather. You inherited part of his gifts, but you noticed and recognized your power of influence, your leadership, your charisma, and you began maximizing that from 8 years old. But who are the parents? You've told us a bit about your mom, but give us some more about that. Who are your parents? What did they do? Where did you grow up? Which city in Zambia? And what schools did you go?
Okay, I grew up in Lusaka.
Okay.
And I went to Jacaranda Basic School where I did my primary school, and then I had a stint in the UK where I did grade 7 up to 10. And then I came back.
What took you there? Diplomatic service?
My mother. Okay. My mother was working there. Okay. And came back, continued grade 11 and 12 at Roma Girls. So I think even just that exposure, at a young age, seeing how other people live in other countries, it opened my eyes to a new world and possibilities that maybe I would not have known were possible had I not been exposed at such a young age. And then, my father's side, my father is very strict.
Okay.
I'm not the oldest, but I'm the oldest girl. I have an older brother. But then what I keenly remember about my father is that I think he understood me, and he may have seen something in me that I wasn't able to appreciate, such that he never gave me a sense that I was a girl, or that I was somewhat limited in what I could do or what I could achieve. And then coming from somebody who's a very strong male figure in my life, I think it did a lot to sort of shape my thinking about what women are supposed to be in the world and in society. And then also that artistic nurturing that came from my mother sort of helped me get a great balance.
So that was a good balance.
Yeah, yes. The kind of person that I am and continue to be.
You had the strict discipline, but very empowering. Not saying you're a girl child, the boys are blah blah blah, but he treated you just like them. Exactly. And your mom helped you to identify your gifts and your grace, and they both worked it. Exactly. And you had exposure, so that exposure must have built your confidence. Going out and coming back, you must have felt a tad more confident than those you had left in Zambia. Does that really affect your confidence? Does that make you feel bolder to express yourself? You're staying out in the UK and coming back.
Of course, the answer to that is a yes.
Yeah.
But beyond that, it exposes you to a world of possibility.
Yeah.
And then it takes away some of those barriers that we have based on a very limited experience of what life is and what people are. Okay. When I was in the UK, you're exposed to all sorts of races of people, mindsets, cultures, all of that perhaps you would not be exposed to here, especially at that time when there was no internet per se, social media, there was nothing. So it was a generation where you were defined by your experiences, and at that time they were quite limited. Especially for a young girl. Yeah. So to have been thrown into that other life in the UK, I think that without a doubt it defined the kind of person that I am today.
So we can create such things for our girl. They may not have to go to England, but coming from Shangobo to Lusaka, that just broadens your whole horizon too. And it means that parents should not just leave children in their small spaces, but look to expose their children. And when they go back to those spaces, they go with bigger and think bigger. Okay? You came back to Roma Girls. Why Roma Girls? I hear so much about Roma Girls, and there's too many Roma Girls. And I'm sure they are watching and say, yes, Roma Girl. Why? What's about Roma Girls, please? And what do Roma Girls do for you?
Okay, so even when I was in the UK, I went to a Catholic school, an all-girls school, a school called Maria Fidelis Convent School. Okay. And I think my parents just have this belief in Catholic schools and all-girls schools, etc. Boarding school. Fortunately, I didn't go to a boarding school. Unfortunately, I don't know. But But there was just this insistence that you need to go to a girls' school, a Christian-based, a Catholic school, and that's how I ended up at Roma Girls, and it was a very strict setup, very competitive. The girls there are very high achievers. So when you're thrown into an environment like that, you must just step up and keep up.
Yeah.
And just inherently as a character, I've never been a person who wants to fail.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that failure is something to run away from, because failure is part of any process.
Yes.
Exactly. But where I'm in a situation where I know that I can do this, if I apply myself, I can do it. And when you think about it, because I came into the Zambian syllabus in grade 11, and then when you're preparing for grade 12, basically you're looking at the syllabus from 10, 11, and 12.
Yeah.
So what I used to do, I would get all the textbooks and all the notebooks from my friends, and then I would write literally all the notes from grade 10, because I didn't do grade 10. Write all the notes, read all the notes, and try to catch up, because the geography, the history, even the mathematics was very different from what I had.
So you're doing 2 grades in 1 year?
Yes, I had to catch up and be at par with my colleagues. And it speaks to the fact that even when you're running the race from behind, you just run a little faster so that you're able to catch up, as opposed to sort of making excuses and coming up with reasons why you can't manage to do something. So that was my experience at Roma Girls, and some of the closest friends that I continue to have today came from Roma Girls. The vice chairperson of the Push Women Network, Alexis Kalula, was somebody that I met. We were in the same class.
Okay.
So when we went to uni together, so it's a friendship that spans over 20 years, and we continue to work together to this day.
Okay. So I would say therefore that your life situations and circumstances has shaped and informed even your values and character. Because being thrown into grade 11, having to catch up from grade 12, pushing yourself and not using that as an excuse to underperform, or using that as a challenge to overcome that, is something every woman should have. What do you think?
Yes.
Because a lot of times you have a group of people who use that as an excuse and say, because I'm a woman, that's why this, therefore let me bury myself here and pity me. And you are saying, yes, you were still a child at that time. Grade 11 is no longer a child actually. And you are saying, this is a challenge I can overcome. I don't fail. My attitude is to, and that seems to be carrying you, because when you come into the army and you become the Deputy Director General and the first woman to do that, you're in the military where it is a male-dominated space. You are still being challenged, and I love the idea of push, which we're going to come to. What would you speak to that? Is that something that probably is true about you and about other achievers?
Yes. Yes, I don't think that someone just shows up and they do something worth talking about. It's a process, it starts from somewhere. And it's very easy to look at a snapshot of someone's life and say, I want to do what they've done.
That's person did.
I want to be like them, but then you look beneath the surface and you see that the iceberg is much, much bigger beneath the water, because of the processes that people have had to go through and probably continue to go through to be able to achieve anything that is worth paying attention to. So, just what I've talked about, just starting from the challenges of coming back and being thrown into grade 11 and telling myself that I'm going to do it nonetheless. It's going to be hard, but the challenge itself should force me to work that much harder. And now bring that to the environment where I work. Like you said, it's a very male-dominated environment. And I never sit and complain about it. And it's not just limited to the military. Society and traditions and culture have defined who we are and how far we can go.
Everywhere.
Exactly. And as opposed to sitting there and saying, but why? why me? Why is the situation like this? Understand why the situation is like that. Why do people form opinions about women in the way that they do? Why is society layered and structured in that way? And how do we position ourselves in a way that we're able to sort of slowly start breaking down some of those fabrics that are detrimental to our development as human beings, as women per se. So yes, it's certainly a challenging career.
Okay.
It's by no means easy, but nothing with anything.
Well, you got the discipline and the values right from when you were a kid. So tell us, you came into university and you chose to study law. Why? You became a lawyer in 2006 and you went on to join the army in 2010. Why that? Why the movement? Why law? And why the army?
Law, because I love to talk about justice issues, they're very close to my heart. And I always just wanted a platform where I could advocate for human rights and justice. That was my passion as a young person then. And also, my brain, I've never really been strong in mathematics or science or things like that. And I always gravitated towards things that required me to do reading, analysis, and things like that.
And you already had leadership and art in you.
Certainly. So for me, law was an obvious choice. So I went to the University of Zambia, and I graduated with my LLB, and then my first professional job as an advocate was with the Ministry of Justice, where I practiced under the Attorney General's chambers as a state advocate. And of course, working with a lot of...
Why didn't you go private?
I wanted to. That was my number one thing. I wanted to go into private practice because my idea of what a lawyer was informed by the things that I saw on TV, the things that I read, people going to court, and it just looked very exciting. And I just thought maybe a career in government would be a bit slower, and it wouldn't be what I wanted to do. And I did try to get into private practice, but at the time I think the Ministry of Justice was offering, to pay for my Ziani, and they were offering all that stuff, and I said, okay, maybe let me go this route, and then I can
come back this way.
I can come back. But unbeknown to me, God had a very, very different plan for my life. So after I worked with the ministry, as a state advocate, you interact with a lot of different government departments, and the army is one of them. And I got under the fact that the army was looking for lawyers. And of course, my first thought was, what would the lawyer be doing in the army? I had no idea how the system operates and everything. But then again, the challenge was the tipping point for me. I was curious, and I wanted to know what.
You seem to like challenges.
I think it's important, because every challenge will propel you to your next level, whatever the next level is.
Bring out what is in you.
Exactly, what is it that you are made of. And then I joined the army, went for the basic training, which wasn't easy. But like you said, the army is a great platform or a great place for you to be able to hone your leadership skills and for you to discover the type of person you are, especially in situations of crisis and pressure. You are, as an officer, you are the leader, you are the one who provides the solution. You cannot afford to say, I don't know what to do. You must be the person who sorts it out. So because of that, I appreciate what the military has done and continues to do for a person like me. The ethics, the discipline, the culture, the values, the love for duty, serving your country, all of that stuff sits very well with the kind of person that I am. So in as much as it is challenging, it inevitably develops you in so many rewarding ways as an individual.
Tell me, you've alluded to several things, looking at leadership. And the question that comes to mind while I listen to you is, are leaders born or are leaders made? Because you have shown us a lot from your heritage, and you are saying, I noticed certain things in me from 8. but you have been very hardworking, challenging, stretching yourself. So Alita's born or made. Will somebody say, well, that's how she was born, that's why she's who she is? What do you say to that? Alita's born or made. Is it just for a few people that are born like that? Or is it up to you to make yourself somebody?
It's not a black and white type.
Because you told me somebody doesn't just emerge. You don't just see guavas. They started from a seed and somebody grew the tree. That basically is what you're saying today. But I was born this and they saw this, I was born this. And that person may be questioning, okay, she was born like that. She's just been like that. But you are saying, no, I developed values. And those values have kept me and I keep stretching. Are we born or made?
It's a bit of both. I mean, like the analogy that you've given about planting a seed. Like you plant a seed and then not water it, not nurture it, it will not grow up to be, if it's a guava tree, it won't. It will die and wither away.
Yeah.
With promise and potential.
Yeah.
That no one ever gets to
see. So a lot of women are dying and withering away because they're not nurturing what nature put in them.
Exactly.
Okay.
So it's a little bit of both. You know, Bible says, I know the plans that I have for you. Mm-hmm. So right there, I know there's a plan.
That's right.
You understand? I come into this world and I know from the beginning there's a plan. And I must discover it. What is my purpose? My God-given purpose. And you have to have a knowledge of it. Okay. You must know it. And even when you're not there, even when you know that, okay, I'm not, but you must have a sense of this plan that God has for you, this bigger thing that He wants you to participate in His greater vision for humanity. And I think that is what sort of throws us as women, as human beings. We just don't know. And even when we do know, we don't have the faith and the courage to go ahead and go through some of the hard things that you have to go through to be able to get there. And that's what sort of holds women back, is fear.
So that's what you're telling women, push.
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 Push through it.
Everything good is birthed through labor. Push. Don't stop.
It's and you see that the word push also presupposes that there's something that you are pushing against.
You're pushing against.
You know,
yes.
There's some obstacle, there's some challenge, there's something
but if
that you have to get past.
There will be dilation and there will be birth.
Yes, and there will be new life.
Awesome.
And exactly what push is all about. And that's what we're trying to say. Okay. You know, it's time to rise up. It's time for us to take our rightful place and participate in this new birth that God has intrinsically given us the ability to be able to do as women.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
let's go back to legal services. Mm-hmm. And you became Deputy Director General of Legal Services in the Army, and you became the first woman, and you are the first woman to occupy that position. How did you rise? So you came from government, you joined the Army. What was military training like for you, becoming an officer?
Well, you see, because normally when you are joining the Army as an officer, the trend is that you join straight from school, straight from secondary school. And I think when that happens, it's easier to sort of get through the indoctrination, which is very necessary for you to be able to serve in the military system. So I joined as a specialist. So it was a specialist intake of lawyers, and I had already been practicing. I was going to court. I was an advocate at the time. So to be put in that situation where you are now, running around and taking orders, etc., it was quite an adjustment, and very humbling also. I think humility in that sense was key, because it wasn't about the fact that I'm an advocate or I'm a lawyer.
They bring you down.
They bring you down. Okay, and then they put what they want to put in you, so that you're able to understand what the system is about, and you're able to fit into uniformed service.
And take command and instructions and follow the chain.
Exactly. So again, it was a very good way for me to learn about, resilience, adaptability, all those things that you need to be able to survive that kind of training.
I like these words. Because life, therefore, is a teacher to give you those things. So your career path, your life has been teaching you these things. And in the military, you're having adaptability and resilience now. Brilliant. Please go ahead.
Yes, and also just physically. Before I joined the military, I didn't know that I could
you run 26 kilometers?
I didn't know.
Did they slow down for you and say, okay, catch up?
There was, because when in the military, there's certain military courses that you have to do as an officer, so that you graduate in your levels, in your rank structure, and in your command capabilities as well. So it was a particular course that I attended after I already joined. I think I was a captain at that time. And we had to start running with, the male officers, and initially it was difficult. And at that time I was the senior most female in that intake. So we have what they call the right marker. That's the person who sets the pace. So the girls said, okay, you will be the right marker because the girls are complaining, so you will set the pace. So I set the pace, and of course it was a slow pace. and the guys complained about it. Fast forward to 2-3 months down the line, I was still that pace setter, and the guys were saying, you need to slow down.
Oh, really?
You need to slow down. And
that's
I said,
fantastic.
No, you need to catch up.
Okay.
So it's really just about...
You've been pushing yourself.
Yes. It's about telling yourself you can do it, but beyond that, actually doing it. Okay? You cannot just be romantic about, motivating yourself and say, yes, I can do it. Meanwhile, you're not doing it. So you have to put yourself out there. You have to put your hand up. You have to volunteer, and you have to throw yourself into it.
I think we should create that caption with your name on it. You don't romanticize success. You don't romanticize leadership. You push yourself to it. You just do it.
And you do it.
I like that. Thank you so much for that. So you come through training. How did you become the first female deputy?
Okay, so what happened was initially the legal department was a directorate, and now it's a branch, so it's a bigger thing, it's a bigger entity. So there were relatively very few lawyers.
Was that what brought you into being a colonel, or you were a colonel before you became that?
Okay, so I'll explain it. Okay. So the directorate was headed by a colonel, a full colonel. And like I said, there were a few lawyers in the army at the time that I joined. And I think because, I stuck around, I fell in love with the system. I basically just demonstrated to everybody who thought that I wouldn't last as long as I did that, I had that stability. Okay. And I fitted in to the best of my ability into the system, and I as much as possible tried to perform every task that was given to me to the best of my ability. And these are not things that you can ask for in the system, it's the powers that be that decide that, okay, this individual should be given these opportunities, and I cannot explain it, I cannot take the credit for it. It's just, preparedness and opportunity meeting. And then that's what happened. So I was appointed to head the directorate then as a director, which I did. And I think a year or so, 2 years later, decided to say, okay, let's expand, because the military is expanding, it's modernizing. Let's expand this legal capability to be an independent, autonomous branch, what we call a branch, so that we're able to deliver legal services more effectively and efficiently throughout the whole structures of the military across the country. So basically made that presentation, and command agreed, and now the legal capability is now at that much higher level, and it is now headed by a general, whom I am deputizing as deputy director.
Brilliant. And what does it feel like being the youngest colonel in the defense forces, not just the army, the defense forces?
Do
you carry that awareness, or it's just like every day, it doesn't matter, that's life?
It matters.
Okay.
It definitely matters, but it's not like this sense of, oh, I have arrived,
Yeah.
It's just part of the journey, part of the story. And it's not anything to be all about, because it's the military,
Yeah.
Women were only recently integrated into that system.
Yeah.
So of course you're going to have a number of firsts for women in a system like that. And the fact that, I happen to be one of them is something that, it challenges me even more. But it's not something that I sit and I say, oh, I've arrived.
Okay.
I don't feel like that.
It's just part of the journey.
Yeah.
Does it create, do you become a role model from your experience? How do they relate with you, the younger officers looking up to you? You have said you carry the responsibility, but do you think it affects their aspirations to want to be and to reach heights that they have not thought women would get into? Do you see that?
Inevitably, yes.
Okay.
Because even for myself, I have mentors and I have people that I look up to who have done things that have not been done before for women, sometimes even for men. And to be able to have those sorts of figures to look up to, it is enormous fuel for us to want to push even harder, because then we're exposed to what is possible, because other people have been able to do it.
Brilliant.
So inevitably, when you are able to pioneer something, it inspires other people, it opens up their minds to possibility, and they're able to know that, okay, if this person can do it, then so can I.
So that's professional life. Let's talk about what you're pioneering in your public space. And as an officer, the military, particularly where it is not a military rulership, the military is normally in the barracks, if you like, and they're only called upon in special occasions. So they're always very quiet. That's why I call them officer and gentlewoman. And they're very quiet, they're very secluded, very introverted. But you are in the public space pioneering. Tell us about PUSH.
Yes.
What is PUSH?
Okay.
And why are you coming out of that cocoon into the public space, galvanizing women?
Yeah. So PUSH stands for Pray Until Something Happens. And it started out as some fellowship that I had created in 2013. And I came up with it after I read the book Woman Thou Art Loosed by Bishop Jakes. And I don't know, I just had a very an experience that I can't explain reading it, because I was exposed to a God that looked at me specifically in my form as a woman, and he had this special place for me. And I said, you know what, I have to do something about this. I was bothered and I felt like I needed to do something about it. So
what did you see? What was the rationale that made you think I needed to do something? What is it you were seeing that bothered you, that pushes the solution to?
At the time, I don't even think that I really conceptualized it.
Okay.
Like I could articulate it in a way that could be understood by anyone. But certainly what I knew is that I needed to bring together women and create a platform where we could just talk and be safe and express ourselves.
That is so crucial for a woman.
It is.
A safe space to express yourself.
Yes.
Go on.
So that's what it was. And we created a WhatsApp group, we created a Facebook group, we had monthly meetings, we had overnight prayer meetings, we had certain community outreach projects, etc. And it was initially a network that we were able to pour so much into ourselves, But then I think towards the end of 2017, I started again being bothered, because I felt like we are stagnating and we needed to create something that was bigger and more and influence a larger space, if I can put it like that. So I shared with my...
What was causing that? I'd like to understand it. What was causing that? Because most women groups in church-based spaces are content with doing those things, having the annual program, to teach on this, to teach on being a wife, to teach on being a woman, and the woman from a biblical perspective submit to your husband. When you are pushing out of that space and you're saying, going beyond the charity of donating something, we can be more. What is stirring you up? What's in your womb?
I think it's God.
Okay.
I think it's biblical.
Okay.
Abraham was sitting in his tent when God called him out and said, come outside, look at the stars. Get out of your tent. You are so limited in your thinking and what you're doing because you're not able to see beyond the four walls or the space where you are occupied. Get out.
So women, please go on, sorry.
Yeah, look at what more you are able to achieve. And looking at what we're doing as women, I got the sense that we could reach so many more women. We could do so much to empower women and to give them the tools and to capacitate them to be able to do the things that we were talking about on a larger stage. And so I came up with this idea of saying, well, let's create an awards event. And I spoke to my husband about it. So, because I consider myself as someone of a dreamer.
Okay.
And my husband is practical. He was okay, fine, you're dreaming, but how do we make it work? And somehow he has that mind or the muscle to be able to run around and actualize it.
So that's a good team.
It is. So he didn't say, nah, we don't even have a budget or something like that. He said, okay, fine, write it down.
Tell me about your husband.
Yeah.
You've moved now into family. Tell me about your husband. How does that, being a woman professional, you're still a wife, and you have a God life that seems to be very important to you. Therefore, you are not like every other person. How does this affect your husband? How do you have the balance from the demands of work and public? Tell me about your husband. How has he supported you? And who is he? Describe him so that everybody can see him in the little scene.
Well, he's a very, very handsome man.
Okay, not that bad. But if you must, please go ahead. Okay.
Right, so he is, first of all, before I even get there, I just want to say that it's very important as women, the kind of person that you choose to be your partner.
Very good.
Because that can either make or break you.
That's right.
In whatever endeavor God has assigned for you, the kind of person who is with you determines your path to self-actualization in so many ways.
Helps you actualize your dreams.
Exactly.
So that's the true definition of a husband. You know that in the Bible, husband is not a male that you marry at court. Husband means the person that brings out your potential. Husband, man. God is the husband. Jesus said, I'm the vine, you are the branches. My Father is the husband man. Yes. So a husband actually is to help you grow and bring out your fruits, and you are describing your husband doing that.
Yes.
So explain the role of a husband.
Yes.
Please go ahead.
Yes, so that's I feel like you've explained it. So like I was saying, he's very supportive. I mean, just being in the military, a very demanding career. Sometimes I have to leave home and deployed somewhere, and he has to be the one who handles the home situation.
Unfortunately.
Exactly, the children, everything, and does that without complaining. That support system, without that, I wouldn't even be able to do half of the things that I do, Awesome. But he holds my hand and he helps me throughout it, and I think I cannot underscore the importance of having that support system.
So it's a partnership. It's not competition. Mm-hmm. It's a partnership.
It is.
And an understanding helps the woman, brings her to self-actualization.
Exactly.
Without that support system, without people choosing right and doing it right, she doesn't reach her full potential.
You will never see the seed germinated. It will, like what I said, it will die.
Okay.
And we'll never see the potential that it holds. And
so we honor him for having been that supportive to you.
Exactly.
And then you give birth to, you're in the space of about to give birth to Push.
Yes.
And you started with the awards. You wanted, and your husband was helping you birth it and midwife it.
Yes. Yes. So, like I said, he said, write it down. So put it down to pen and paper, and he went through it and he said, okay, now we have to make this thing happen because it's going to need funds for it to actually work. And it was just some idea, some vision, and we knocked on so many doors looking for support. And for every 10, 20 doors that we knocked on, we got a yes. And that yes made all the no's that we had gotten previously irrelevant, because for us it was okay, what we're doing is actually something that people are buying into, and they're seeing that this thing actually makes sense.
Yeah.
And we did the event, the first one in 2018. And we were overwhelmed with this kind of success.
Brilliant.
And the support that we had gotten. And obviously we were able to achieve the visibility that we wanted, because now people were seeing us, they were seeing what we were doing and what we were trying to achieve.
And the awards were about what?
So the awards were about...
Somebody's hearing it for the first time.
Yes. So the Push Women Awards were birthed from an idea that I had to say, there are so many women who are going against the grain and swimming against the tide, and no one ever talks about them. For some reason, those stories are not as interesting in mainstream media. You don't see those stories, you see the scandalous stories more often than not.
Yeah.
And I said, but we need to find these women. That's the only way that we'll be able to change the narrative, to be able to show what women are doing in unconventional fields. We have engineers, we have women in aviation, pilots, women in the military. We have women doing amazing things in the medical sector, the financial sector. In every sector. Every sector. They are playing a role and they're doing amazing things, and we need to bring them to the fore so that young girls, women, boys, men can see them and appreciate what happens when you give these women these opportunities to be able to do some of these things. Yeah. That's what the event was about. Okay. And it has continued. We're now in our fourth year, consecutive year, and we want to, the next one is going to be in October. Yeah. And of course, we don't want to do the same thing every year. So we're looking at how to explore and do it on a larger stage, an international stage perhaps, so that we continue to stretch ourselves beyond our own imagination.
So one of the first things you're doing is recognizing the achievements of women and celebrating those achievements to create space for more women to come into leadership. And one thing you're doing, which is innovation, is new. In May, what event is this that Push is pushing?
Right. So we're doing the Lusaka Business Expo on the 7th and 8th of May. And what inspired that was the sense that, this conversation that happens in the women's movement is not a conversation just for women to have. It's not just for, women sit in a corner and have a little chat about it.
Yes.
It's something that involves entire communities. We need to galvanize everybody to participate in this conversation. The private sector, the public sector, everybody needs to get involved in talking about it. And for us, we're big on economic emancipation, financial inclusion, because when a woman is financially independent, all the other forms of empowerment basically come naturally. Yeah. So we're speaking specifically to the business community and saying, okay, how can we support this cause? How do we come together and as a collective work towards this common goal? And how do we even celebrate the business community who are very instrumental in ensuring that women are included, women participate, and women are actually, on their way to being more successful. So the good thing with this event is that we have partnered with government, to the Ministry of Commerce, Trade and Industry, who have come on board as a platinum partner and have supported us by co-opting all the statutory bodies under the ministry and other companies and organizations that they work with to support the expo, either as exhibitors and sponsors, so that we ensure that we have a successful 2-day event. Okay. Yeah, so we're looking at this multi-sectoral approach in ensuring that, what we're talking about is not just, like a talking shop. It's something that actually creates real meaningful impact on the ground.
Okay. And talk about the Push Women and the Push Network. About how many women do you have, and what guarantees, what informs membership, and how do you continue to contribute to the growth, development of female leaders and broadening the leadership space for women?
Okay. So in terms of membership, we do have about just under 1,000 members to the network, and the idea is to continue to grow and to continue to broker partnerships and relationships that allow us to give value to our memberships, to our members as well.
Okay.
So in terms of how we want to continue to grow the space, I mentioned the Push Women Awards.
Yes.
So all the award recipients are part of our mentorship program.
Okay.
So we move around with these women, we talk to young women, we talk to young boys, and we believe that, you know, the use of live examples is a very powerful teaching tool. As opposed to saying you can do it,
Yeah.
you show them somebody who has done it.
Yeah.
That is very, very, very powerful for young
Okay.
people to be able to see and to appreciate.
Okay.
So we want to continue obviously in that space and to expand our influence and our territory as well, so that we're able to reach more and we're able to even organize more support
Okay.
towards our efforts.
Okay. You talked about, I like what you mentioned, and I would like to see how does it, what the word or the words women movement, the women movement, it has been very strong coming from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s in particular, into the 90s. You had a very strong women's movement. You have Beijing 1995, so it's Beijing plus 26 now. What is the women's movement? We seem to lose that term or have lost it with the younger generation, with your generation. How is that word evolving? Because you are taking it to the market space now. You're taking it to leadership, into achievement and things. Does that mean the women's movement is evolving? Initially, we saw it as advocacy, women's rights, which is still happening big time now because we haven't achieved it. But for your generation, how do they interpret the women's movement? Or is it something that is going cold, but you are activating it? So what is that to you in your generation, the women's movement? And how are you incorporating the old to keep stirring up the new? Is there something going on there?
Yeah, I think the dynamics have changed, you know, from just having little groupings of women, you know, dealing with it on their own. We understand that we need to integrate other players, other stakeholders, and it has to be something that actually translates into numbers in terms of representation. You know, we want to be represented in decision making, you know.
Well, you have this, the 50-50 protocol, standard protocol.
Exactly.
Why are we not, you're a lawyer,
Yeah.
why are we not actualizing it? Why are we not realizing it?
I think it takes more than a day, more than a decade.
Legislation, okay.
Yes. And even just, you know, to change systems.
Okay, so it's systemic.
Yes, to transition. You know, it's one thing to have a piece of paper and to actually have it actualized on the ground. And it talks about, you know, acceptability, you know, and the fabric of society is so, you know, it's difficult to shift mindsets and to shift the thinking, such that you can have a piece of paper but maybe it doesn't fit into
So
the
patriarchy is a big mountain.
It is.
To chip away.
It is.
And it's taking some time.
What is important is that we're having more conversations about it. We are more liberal in our thinking, and we are seeing practically that, you know, women are being elevated to the highest levels of leadership. Who knew that the first African to be at the helm of the World Trade Organization would be a woman?
Absolutely.
Who would have known?
Absolutely.
But there we have it. The first African,
the first female.
Is indeed female.
Yes.
Exactly. So slowly, very slowly, I think at the highest levels, we are seeing that there is that shift in thinking and in policy, but we need it to be more representative in terms of numbers and in terms of percentages, and that, you know, or you say 50-50 percentage to be achieved.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that for us, it's more than just, you know, having like a chorus of women talking.
Okay.
It's about, okay, what does it translate into in terms of impact and in terms of numbers? What have we been able to achieve? Do we have more women now? You know?
That is a good assessment.
In decision making?
Yeah.
Do we have more representation in policy?
Because somebody said to me, as we talk this, and unfortunately we're wrapping up because an hour goes so quickly. Somebody said, it's okay to say you have women in parliament. How many of them push for bills? How many of them advocate, really go there to change the game? Or not just to fill numbers and say we have less than 20%, but of those 20%, who is pushing bills for this change? And you are saying it's not just about participation, it's about making change.
Represent us. And you see, it's such a, sometimes almost like an unfair burden sometimes to put on an individual, because when a man is put in a position, he represents himself, but when a woman, she represents
the constituency of
exactly, and that is the difference, you see, such that even the word push becomes so much more relevant now, that when you are given that opportunity, because you know how coveted that opportunity is and how rare it is, that when you are given that opportunity, you represent us.
Ms. Kanji, I am so sad because we have to stop this discussion for time, but it means that we would have, hopefully by the grace of God, other times to continue the discussion. You have taken us into your life and shown us the qualities, the events that brought out the qualities that has made you the woman you are and you are becoming, because we still hope that you will be challenged to be the first commander of the army. We haven't got one yet, in case you didn't know, so there's still something to aim at. They taught you how to use the rifle, so I hope you're shooting towards that way. You've shown us your family and how your parents played roles and complemented your growth. You showed us the value of exposure and how exposure broadens your horizon and makes you dig deeper. Your schools and fraternity in your schools brought out and helped, and you're still relating with them now, and it has brought about push. You showed us how adaptability and flexibility, consistency has made you the first female deputy Director General of Legal Advisory Services in the Army, and that is no longer a directorate, is now a whole branch which changed with your participation, and you have become the first female colonel, the youngest, not the first, the youngest female, the youngest colonel, not just female, but the youngest colonel in the defense forces, not just in the army, correct? And that is breaking barriers. But more than that, you have come away from just being a professional soldier to becoming a woman of influence, a woman that is saying our society can do better if women are appreciated more. And you have started appreciating women through push. You and your colleagues have pushed over 1,000, about 1,000 of you. And we really would love to see the success of the business expo you're organizing. We hope to come and look at what you're doing, and we really would love to see your dashboard. What's next? What is in the wound you are pushing out, and how you're getting other women to push. We really thank you. We thank your husband for having supported your journey, and your family for having been patient with you. Thank you for having us, and thank you for talking to us.
It's been a pleasure, Pastor. Thank you.
As we wrap it up, just say something to that girl, that woman that has been with us in the over 1 hour, I'm sure, right now. What is the roadmap? They want to get to the height of their dreams. They want to dream and get to, you said you're a dreamer. What is it they need to do?
Yeah, so this camera, right?
Yes.
Okay, so all of us have been created for a purpose. Every single one of us has a unique space to occupy in this earth, and it is a God-given purpose. And we all know that we have something that is in place in us that will usher us into our greatness, whatever that looks like. And the thing that hinders most of us is this fear of failing, fear of what will people think, fear of I will not be able to attain this thing that I want to do. I want to encourage you now that the first thing that you need to do is take a step and get your feet wet. It's very comfortable and cozy on the boat. Get out of the boat and you might do something amazing like walking on water. the first thing that you need to do is a start. Everybody who you have looked at and think have done anything remotely great in their life did it because they took the step. And doing it doesn't mean the absence of fear. It's doing it in spite of the fear. And if you fail, you might learn a lesson, or you might actually succeed. The first thing that you need to tell yourself and know in your heart, convict yourself that you are capable, you are able, and there is nothing that you cannot do with God on your side. And God bless you.
I want to thank you and wish you and your family all the best. We're going to come back to you and we talk about passing the baton. So we'll talk to you about that, and we hope that you will be available to pass the baton to the next generation on this platform of raising leaders as women. Thank you so much for your time, and continue to achieve and fly the flag for that constituency called women. God bless you. Viewers, we've been talking to Musa Namawa, and she is, as you have heard her, the youngest, the fastest colonel in the whole of Zambia's Defense Forces. She's the first female Deputy Director General of the Legal Services, Legal Advisory Services in the Defense Forces, in the Army, and she has been motivating, inspiring, networking, and getting women through the PUSH network to make a difference in our society. She is a leader, she is a leading woman in the COVID era, and she's pushing now for the business space to begin to appreciate more women. We thank her for her time, and we thank you for watching. We will come to you tomorrow again with another great Zambian woman achieving and pushing the barriers for more women to enter leadership. Thank you for watching. Watch out for Scars to Stars, same time, same session tomorrow evening. God bless you. Good night.